Hello, my beautiful friends, my fellow sparkly space blobs, my sun blobs, my cocoon goo people, and those emerging as new butterflies and everything in between and beyond. Welcome back to this space. I'm sitting down here today and where to even begin? The energy right now is a lot. And I think one of the first things I want to do in this space at the moment is just normalize that we are working with really, really intense energy right now. And those of us who are sensitive and pick up on all of this stuff and are feeling an enhanced sense of justice and empathy and all of that stuff are navigating a lot right now. And physically, emotionally, psychically, energetically, we are processing a lot. And that means that a lot of times we are going to be kind of riding these really, really big cosmic waves. And that comes with both moments of insight, clarity, aha, illumination, connection, new paths opening up, as well as moments where we kind of crumble inside. And I think it's important to put words to that and remember that is part of the process right now. That's also what this Mercury retrograde is going to be helping us do. And I often do a Mercury retrograde video. They come up 3 times a year, so we come around to this topic very, very often in this space. However, this Mercury retrograde is really, really special. It's happening during eclipse season. It's happening during Venus retrograde. It's also happening as Neptune is preparing and will shift from Pisces into Aries. And we are just working with these huge seismic shifts. And Mercury really helps us to process that information, embody it, and allow those new energies to land, those new visions to land, the psychic work to be done. And so this is an important Mercury retrograde, I think, to just create a little bit of space and atmosphere to explore it together and make it special and understand kind of the work that we're doing here together. So that's what we're going to do here today. We're going to get ourselves a nice set of vision goggles and we're going to put them on. We're going to work through this Mercury retrograde together and contextualize it with all these other things that are going on. And I hope to bring a little bit of the magic in the psychic realm that is going on right now. It's so interesting to navigate these times together, but sitting down here to do this kind of psychic visioning together is really the most beautiful space that we could have. So let's get right into our Mercury retrograde, moving through Aries and a little bit into Pisces. This Mercury retrograde is happening in the context of a lot of other energies that are working right alongside it as we move with this Pisces Aries threshold energy that is working so powerfully through March and April. The Mercury retrograde is running from March 15th to April 7th. It starts at 9 degrees of Aries and will move back into Pisces to 26 degrees of Pisces. So it is moving across that Pisces Aries threshold along with Venus retrograde, which is also moving back through Aries and then back into Pisces. It's also happening during eclipse season. So the lunar eclipse in Virgo and the partial solar eclipse in Aries are going to both be happening during this Mercury retrograde. And this Mercury retrograde is going to be helping us usher in the shift from Neptune in its home sign of Pisces into Aries for the first time in many, many years. So this is a really, really energetically powerful time. There is a lot going on. And we are doing a lot of review. We are doing a lot of energetic processing from behind the scenes, which is extremely potent and powerful, but doesn't always look like fireworks and clarity on the surface, which I think is really important to emphasize here right now. There are things happening in the world. We're always going to be seeing that. But some of the stuff that's going on specifically during this March-April time period with both Mercury and Venus retrograde and some of these shiftovers are going to be specifically things that we are doing in the psychic realm, in the energetic realm, that are helping us to get into clarity of action, clarity of movement forward, clarity of vision. But that doesn't mean that it's not really deep, important work. And one of the first things I want to mention here is just that Retrogrades are needed to actually embody and fully energetically catch up with our process. And Mercury retrograde specifically is extremely important for being able to embody, be, somatically present in our bodies to keep up with the energetic work going on behind the scenes. I think this is so important. Mercury retrograde happens 3 times a year. It's very, very consistent. I mentioned this so many times in this space, but including the pre and post shadow phases as well as the actual retrograde themselves, Mercury is in some kind of communion with retrograde energy 50% of the year. Straight up. So it's a really innate part of our process. And it's where we are able to catch up with our growth and change. It's also where we're able to kind of move through and maybe release anything we don't need to carry with us into the next phase of the year, into the next season of life. So it does a lot of work, kind of like the way that when we go to sleep at night, we process a lot of information. Our body and our brains and our nervous system are able to weave together new ideas. That's kind of the idea with Mercury retrograde. It's helping us to weave new ideas. And one thing I wanted to kind of bring up here with this Mercury retrograde, with the idea that it's working in tandem with Venus retrograde, with the eclipse season, and kind of ushering us into some of these new energetic waves, is that you might notice right now that a lot of old stories, themes, and moments in your life are coming back to you in your mind. I have been really noticing this quite a bit in the recent days already before Mercury retrograde begins. And this is partially the work of Venus retrograde as well, that I'm having a lot of memories surface, little specific moments that were meaningful to me in my life. Maybe moments where I made a shift, or where I said goodbye to something, or where I recognized something in myself. And all of those ingredients are helping me to understand what I'm needing to shift now. A lot of us are meeting old places that we need to process, to face into them or to remember them. A lot of us are looking into some of those cobwebby, neglected corners where it's a little dark, it's a little scary to explore, but it also feels so good to bring that candle, look into those spaces, illuminate them, and feel them process through. I think this is a really important part of this Mercury retrograde that it might feel intimidating. And I think that's the other thing I want to say here too, is that I just threw a lot at us in this first, 5 minutes of our chat today, because I'm like, here's all these things that are going on. And I really want to emphasize, there's no need to be stressed about this eclipse season, this Mercury retrograde, this Venus retrograde. But there is important energetic work going on behind the scenes that needs to be acknowledged and remembered, that we're working on that level of energy and vision, and that it takes a lot of physical energy to do it. And as long as we start to change our perspective into one where we allow for that to be a very important part of the process, instead of neglecting it or saying, kind of gaslighting ourselves out of the fact that we are doing that energetic processing, it's important to put it here front and center. We are processing old patterns. We are processing old memories. We are processing past relationships, past experiences, past places of contraction or frustration. And all of that processing is directly related to how we are coalescing new vision. Those times when you have a really, really clear day, you just feel connected to everything and everything feels synchronistic, and you just amazing things are going to coalesce and you're connected to it, and you feel in that really loving, centered place of clarity and knowing, and you just think, I want this to go on forever. Maybe I can keep going on forever. Maybe you'll even have a few days of it where you just feel that deep clarity. And then have you ever noticed that often, almost always actually, I've noticed this, you will have then a crash. You'll have a day, maybe a day later, maybe a few days later, where you kind of contract and you go into yourself. And it feels like, oh my gosh, was I just kidding myself? Was I just off in some fairyland and now I'm back to reality? Or will I never be able to get back there again? But one thing that I've noticed with this kind of dynamic that tends to happen is that this is all innately part of what happens when we're bringing new vision to life, when our bodies are trying to keep up with that new visioning. Just imagine, you are envisioning a just world where there's a lot of peace and we've fixed some of the problems and we've been able to turn over a new leaf. Let's just say that's the vision. That's one of my visions that I like to hold in my body. And you have a really good day with that. The amount of energy that we're using to tap into that is quite large. And while it's also giving us energy and it's also feeling really good, that means our whole bodies and our whole systems are needing to process that vision. When we crash, when we contract, when we slow down, that is part of processing it. It's also part of working with the part of ourselves that is scared of change or overwhelm, that can sometimes be a little bit emotionally triggered by some of the bigness of the vision that needs to also be tended to in order to be prepared for the next wave. And I bring this up because I think Mercury retrograde is really adept at doing this. It's like I was saying before, Mercury retrograde is important for being able to embody new vision. When we try to skip over this part, it is like going without sleep. It is like going without those repair moments. So one of the things I want to say about just working with this Mercury retrograde is keep that kind of work and processing in mind during this time. During mid-March into mid-April, just allow that to be part of your process. You are going to have moments where you feel like you're blooming. You're open, you're hopeful, you can see it. And you're going to have times when you feel like you are crashing, but you're not actually crashing. You are connecting dots and processing information and allowing it to land in your body. And at its heart, I think that's what Mercury retrograde is always all about, but it's especially right now with the emphasized waves of energy, a really central part of working with this specific Mercury retrograde. And as we're doing this work, we are getting really, really clear about our longings, about where we want to turn our attention. The moments of contrast and contraction that we might feel during this time are directly linked to the longings we want to bring into the world. And that actually brings me to the themes around the idea of a Mercury retrograde moving through Aries and then into Pisces, because the themes here with this Aries Pisces threshold are dynamic, deep, and very symbolically rich. We are really challenging the idea of performance-based, mechanized force control of our individual selves. Aries often gets translated as, of course, it is about the experience of being an individual and experiencing that fully, which includes sometimes the loneliness, the overwhelm, but also getting to do unique things and getting to make choices and have preferences and all of that. But then often there's this quick leap to ego with Aries, which isn't necessarily the core of Aries. It's just one way that individuality can be expressed. When it's unhealthy, when it's limping along, we can just be stuck in ego. But Aries, when it's about kind of a relaxed sense of unique self-expression, is very much about and feeling like we're enough, feeling we're connected to the cosmic order of things, feeling like we don't have to rush, we don't have to be in competition with anybody else. We are just initiating and sparking ideas and connecting dots at all times, and that means we can relax and just be ourselves without any of that stress. And that's part of what both Venus and Mercury retrograde are doing here, is they go back through Aries and then reintegrate into Pisces. This helps our individual self remember that it is deeply connected to a much larger web of information and ideas, and that when we start doing that forward motion again in April and moving forward, that we are coming from a place of creation, of decisiveness, of preference, of connection, of uniqueness in each of our individual selves that does not come from lack or desire for power and control. This is also a renewal of a connection to our true core self that frees us from some of the language around mechanizing ourselves, around forcing productivity, around forcing things to happen, around forcing ourselves to make the world go round. This Mercury retrograde is really going to challenge that productivity culture as the way you're a good person, you're a just person, you're a caring person, and it's going to turn that all on its head. I've said this before, but Mercury retrograde is an optical illusion. It looks as though, from our viewpoint here on Earth, that Mercury is moving backwards. But in reality, Mercury is not moving backwards. Mercury is continuing to move forward. And that's part of the symbolic richness of astrology, is that it's a part of our myth making and storytelling, and that energetically has resonance and power in our lives. But the part of the Mercury retrograde that I want to get to here is that sometimes during this time, especially in conjunction with the Venus retrograde that's going on at the same exact time, really truly, is that many of us are going to be experiencing this feeling like we are going backwards, like we are not doing enough, like the world's, cascading backwards in some kind of way. Well, at the same time, that's not what's going on. We are actually moving forward. And that is the gift of Mercury retrograde as well. So I just want to bring in a couple of practices here at the end of our chat to feel through and work with this Mercury retrograde and just this time period in general, because it is bigger than just the 3 weeks of Mercury retrograde. It's also Venus retrograde. It's also eclipse season. We are working with a lot of layers. So a few practices that I think are really helpful when working with this Mercury retrograde is: 1, get curious about the places you feel contraction, resistance, fear, overwhelm, or any kind of emotion that isn't part of that kind of high-flying, connective, high vibes thing. Any place where we do feel contraction, any place where we do feel overwhelm is a doorway into new vision and information. And just knowing that can be really, really soothing. I know for me, when I have that as a lens, as part of my visioning goggles that I put on my special vision goggles for Mercury retrograde to look for information and ideas from a different perspective, from an upside down perspective. I will find really, really beautiful longings there, really, really beautiful clues as to where to put my energy next. Rather than it being an obstruction, it's a clue, it's a doorway. So just thinking about it in that way can be extremely helpful, both for Mercury and Venus retrograde, honestly. And also another place here is that there's going to be a tendency while we're working with all of this very psychic energy moving through right now to feel places where we want to control or contract and have control of the mechanism we're working with. Notice those times when you feel like you want control. You want to make it right now. You want to check every news site and you want to check every activity you've ever done and make sure it's right. Notice those moments and release tension when and how you can. It's not easy. It's much easier said than done, but just having that as a small practice in your day-to-day can be very helpful. And then, of course, I'm going to say it. Spend time, if you can, visioning, journaling, scribbling, doing intuitive art, free writing, meditating, walking in nature, anything that gets you into that connective space, because visions are going to be coming in really, really powerfully during this Mercury retrograde. And they are going to be really speaking to many of us. And we are going to be integrating huge, huge waves of vision that as we move out of the post-shadow phase, we get into more like May. Many of us are going to feel this resurgence of Aries energy that is extremely clear. It is that relaxed, calm, I'm a unique individual that has something to share, and I don't have to come from a place of lack, scarcity, powerlessness. I can come from a place of belonging. That kind of energy is coalescing behind the scenes. I kind of took a circuitous route to get to that thesis, because that's how I work so often. But that is really what's going on here. We are coming into a place of calm, clear Aries energy that is about strong initiation from a place of belonging, centered self-confidence and clarity. And the more of us visionaries who are able to emotionally process and do this behind the scenes work during these next couple of months, the better, because we are the ones who are going to be creating culture and creating community moving forward. And that is something that's very easy to lose sight of in all the noise of the world right now and all the things that are happening simultaneous to this energetic piece of it. I get that, believe me. I am navigating that. I'm figuring it out day by day how to navigate that. But I think this conversation is for you who wants to find that clear centered, clear self presence, that Aries when reborn really comes into. And so much of this Pisces Aries threshold is about birthing a new world. I'm just going to pull one card, maybe two. We'll see. You never know with me. Oh, a card wanted to pop it, did not want to go back in the deck, and it's the Fool, which is about as on point as a reading about the Pisces Aries threshold and this idea of rebirth and renewal can get. Fool energy is extremely powerful this year, and it has been a really dynamic part of the process. And Fool energy has so many layers to it. But one of the things that's so fascinating about it is that it has an openness to possibility, an openness to things working in ways that we can't see coming, an openness to beauty coalescing. And, you know, the Fool can almost feel taboo at times if the world is in a place of pain, which it is right now. I mean, this world is always kind of has a density and a cruelty to it. Let's be real. Like, it's never been just peaceful here, you know, but I mean, there's so many different simultaneous experiences going on. But, you know, sometimes it can feel taboo to allow Fool energy in because is it conscientious enough? Is it aware enough of everything? But I think the radical beauty of Fool energy is that it continues to be open to possibility. It continues to be open to new connection points. It reminds me of this idea of the unimaginable horizon that I often talk about in this space, which is that there are so many ingredients and connection points that we cannot conceive of in our imagination where we're sitting here right now. Even if we like to visualize and meditate, there are so many meeting points and points of coalescence with other ingredients that we cannot see coming. The Fool is open to that. The Fool is open to the interconnected web of life speaking with him. And I think that openness is really important right now. It's a really, really powerful stance to be in. It's one that allows for us to connect to others, to create community, to create moments of boundless dreaming, to enter into that kind of connected space of inspired action, divine action that is effective, that is clear, and not feeling like we have to run around, scrabble around, and torture ourselves in order to be good people, in order to contribute, in order to bring beauty to life. And I think just in general, like the Fool, most of us are going to be smiling and feeling a sense of relief and openness just seeing this image. And it is very much the doorway through Pisces. We re-enter into the wisdom of the Fool. And this is one of the more beautiful aspects of Aries energy when it's in that connected belonging state. It's able to express so naturally, so effortlessly, so easily in just being itself. And the Fool is also a card that encourages us to think in unique ways, turn things on their head, do things backwards, do things in ways that are unexpected. To go backwards is to go forward, to slow down is to speed up, to look inward is to expand outward. All of that kind of language and logic is very intrinsic to the Fool, and it's very intrinsic to Mercury Retrograde. To look at everything from that reversed perspective and have fun with it. And I think the Fool is a reminder of that too. I think there's so much heavy energy processing we're doing. This whole conversation, I feel like I've been saying, you know, it's really dense, it's really intense, we're moving through a lot, which is true, but it's also important to remember there is that light side simultaneous to the heaviness. There is a playful side, there is an absurd side, and it's okay to have moments where we spend time there as well, envisioning the new world, envisioning what is bubbling up and wanting to be expressed next. And I love that we can have those simultaneous layers during this March, April, wild, energetic ride that we are going on. I am working through Venus retrograde wild dreaming in my wild dreaming community over on Patreon. And we are doing all of these like visioning practices that I've created that are really approachable, that help us get into that connective, like visioning space to see what's coming, to process Venus retrograde, to process the emotions and visions that are coming up, to get in communion with it. It's my passion project, doing wild dreaming and teaching wild dreaming and exploring it together. So if you are looking for support during this very intense time with so much energy moving through, I would really love to see you in that space. It supports me. It helps me to keep showing up here and offering these conversations to this community here. So I'd love to see you over there and offer you all of the goodness and support we've got going on there. But of course, I love it when you stick around here. I love it when you subscribe. And also, I want to hear, like, how are you experiencing the energy right now? What are some keywords that are coming up? What are some themes that are coming up? I love reading your comments. It's my favorite thing ever. You can check out the lunar eclipse chat we have that starts right around the same time as Mercury retrograde. We are about to have the Aries solar eclipse chat coming out very soon as well. So I hope to see you back here for all of that goodness. Hang in there. Take care of your beautiful soul. It has so much beauty to express and bring to the world, and we're all connecting and we're all finding new ways to light up our beacon lights and connect and create something new. And it's so important to remember that every single day right now. I'm sending you all so much love, and I'll see you back here very, very soon.